on piracy and cracked software that is released by the copyright holders, by the company that makes your software and deliberately after a while or from the beginning made it to where it was downloadable through torrent or included the ability to crack the software either temporarily or permanently for a very good reason. If you're not aware of it, this was inspired by and eventually adopted as the practice, de facto practice, by Microsoft Corporation having to deal with people pirating their software. But a warning, actually cracked and or pirated software is bad. You can get malware, viruses. It's always going to have a security risk because by definition it's going to use something hinky. By definition, there's a presumption of guilt on your part for using it, so people who release this feel perfectly morally okay with putting in viruses and malware and spyware. Most of it's spyware right now, but I also want to point out that some of the companies that put out the software that's being pirated also include their own spyware. So a lot of times the crackers just alter it to where they get this spyware data instead of the original company. It's not ethical, that's correct. It's also violating their software agreement, so it's technically illegal. I say that in the most appropriate way because the software license agreements for most of these companies are not enforceable, simply because of the way they do them. And sometimes they make them unenforceable on purpose, to where they'd have to have a really good reason to sue you. They don't want to, it's expensive, and they see the writing on the wall watching this happen to other companies. They deliberately make it to where it's hard for them to do it, and only do it if they absolutely need to. Next, it infringes on their property rights, their intellectual property rights, copyrights, patents, and trademarks of the developers who originally created the software, and eventually the big mega corporations that buy them out and tell them to go screw themselves. Do you feel bad about that? Now, here's the real answer. It won't encourage them to support their current or older versions as much, or put up with you contacting them on tech support, because they're not getting paid. How do they know you have a valid copy? Did you steal it in their mind? It de-incentivizes them to innovate or support current and older versions. Okay, now that we've gotten that all away, what about companies that go out of their way to put it up like they're putting up some sort of secret, cracked software? Let's give an example. This is the page on archive.org, backup copy of Unity3D.com's Get Unity Download Archive page. This is the 2019 version. We can go backwards and forwards. I'll leave a link to this and be done with it. But the point is, they have Unity 3 being available in 2019, all the way up to the 2019 version. By the way, I hate that the companies use version numbers for things, and then when they could just use the year. They need to do both. Unity 3 2012, Unity 4 2013, Unity 5 2016, for instance. I really don't like that they don't just combine them. Like Unity 2018X, it should say Unity 2018 space 7, for instance, or whatever it is. Because we need to know when the product came out, and we need to know the version number. Because the version number, if you're not aware of it, is what allows or prevents compatibility. And the year and time and date stamp is just when it came out. Not including both pieces of information is what I consider one of the sins on the internet. Now, how was this downloaded? Well, you hit the download button, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, some of you immediately are looking there and saying, wait a minute, you can get the installer, the editor, which are separate, the cache server, the built-in shaders, and then there's a torrent. Torrent and many other file sharing methods that are sometimes called self-hosted downloaders or torrents are also referred to as just torrents. They just call it that way, or torrent-like. Allows you to download it like you would do for clicking this, or this, but you share it using the torrent program or torrent protocol, and suddenly when someone clicks this, instead of downloading it off of Unity3D.com, which costs them money for bandwidth, you're downloading it from not just them, but from everybody else who ever downloaded it. Yes, that sounds like a joke you heard on the internet about how you're not supposed to share unwrite protected floppies or whatever. you host. But anyway, the point here is really simple. They provided a download link that was based on a method that was usually used to steal things. Now, why did they do that? Their explicit statement at the time, and I remember reading it, but I don't have a copy anymore. I don't know where I found it. It was on somewhere on the website. Was the reason we use torrent is so that it saves us bandwidth because you become the server. You become the download source. And more importantly, you make it impossible for our hard work to ever disappear. Now, you might know about Unity using PACE anti-piracy and other digital rights management software. And you can turn that off in some of the products that are put out by the video game. You can download video games that are done in Unity that explicitly disable the copy protection or digital rights management. Yeah, you can. You can say, I don't want to do that. You disable it. It literally removes it, and suddenly it doesn't have PACE anti-piracy or whatever in it. Or whatever other product name it has this week. If you're not aware of it, it had a bad reputation because it would break Windows installs all the damn time. Windows XP would crash because of it. Because of a certain update. Okay, fine. And I hate it. Okay, fine. But I still run the Unity-based version of Rust Legacy on my computer, even though I know the software's there, because it doesn't crash anymore. I don't like it. I don't like that it tries to hide itself. It should be explicit. And guess what? The version it is on is actually explicit and is not hiding itself in the registry anymore. But I want to point out something. Is the torrent version including the copy protection or not? Or can it? Now, the way they did this, obviously, is they licensed it through the server. The server, if you download Unity 3 point whatever, won't let you use the product. Except when it does. Some of the functions are still in it so you can test it out. It may be in demo mode. Or it may be in, hey, you're in an installer mode, you'll need to put in a product key. You might be able to download a product key and authenticate it. If you go back old enough, hint, hint, it actually just lets you install it. So we have a website here that put out at one time seemingly cracked and pirated versions of their own software. Now, why would somebody do that? The same reason that Microsoft did it. Because it makes it to where when you download the program, you're not going to infect yourself or any other computer because viruses and malware and spyware and programs that stole your identity and your credit cards were such a huge problem that it became a national security threat for literally every company and country and population on the planet. It got so bad that Microsoft Corporation tacitly included their own cracks and hacks in their products. You can run Windows, like I am now, in perpetual demo mode if you want to. We also call that volume license key mode, or I have an HP laptop, let me just download the HP laptop cracked code. It's called volume license key, but what it does is it turns off the checks and stops calling home. Why did I do that? Because Microsoft Corporation tells people to do it. Yeah, they have the files and you had to send them an email and agree to an agreement, but everybody else just uses a loader like DAS loader or whatever, because when you do that, it's using the authentication files. It won't work unless your computer ever ran it. This Windows machine is validated to run anything from Windows 10 all the way back to Windows 3.1 for workgroups with a blank serial number. Why? Because it puts it in permanent demo mode. It turns off all of the updates and stuff until the utility in HP's code turns it back on. I turn it off. Now, why would a person do that? Why would a company go? Why would Microsoft Corporation do it? Because if I'm building a system at Hewlett-Packard's website, or at their build site, or if I'm building in a computer shop, I want it not to do any of the neat features. I just want to install drivers and software for my customer. And I don't want to type in a serial number because I'm not the end user. The customer is. This was understood from the get-go, and Microsoft Corporation has always tacitly, if not overtly, told people, yeah, the software can be cracked. We included the crack. Please don't download cracks and hacks. We provide it. It's built into the software. You just have to go read some manuals. Let's move on. Here is the Unity 3D all versions download link for version 1 up through 3. This is considered the golden era for Mac and Windows installs of it. And originally this was a Mac-only product. But anyway, let's move on. Here's the Wayback Machine, and all we do is look up download.unity3d.com/download Unity and anything under it, and we see this going back to 2009 like we showed you. And here is one from literally publication date 2011, but it was uploaded in 2022, over 10 years old, kind of abandonware, Unity 2.5. The executable is 150, 160 megabytes. And there's a torrent. You know where they got the torrent from? They cut and pasted it from the original company, Unity Gaming Services. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, that's it, them. They put it up here. Let's look at another one. Publication date 2011, and the file itself is 400 megs. And again, there's a torrent. There's also a PNG and some other things. And this is Unity 3.4. And there's our data for making this. And you know what? It was uploaded in 2022. Uploaded by Unity, the corporation, or not. Let's move on. Here's one that doesn't say who uploaded it. It's a 2013 file. This is the year it was put up here. Well, that's illegal. Yeah, but it's literally the download installer. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's the ISO image because it's a CD-ROM version someone uploaded. There's no link for it. They created a torrent, and there it is. The torrent, if you download the torrent, screw the file. Just right-click and save link as, and it'll save onto your hard drive as archive torrent. That allows you to not only download it, but then you become part of the hosting. You become part of the problem. This one's called Unity 3D, and the file itself is 800 megs, and when we hit show all, it tells us that it's version 4. Here's 4.6. It's much bigger, too. This one's over a gigabyte. And again, a torrent that's really small. And again, show all will show us a bunch of stuff. This is the Unity web player. This tells you how to install the web player that makes it to where every browser can run a tiny copy of the Unity game engine. And it's a big zip file, and these are, let's look at version 2.1. It's 3 megabytes, and it fits into your browser. And if your browser isn't old enough to do it, you can download an older version of the web browser, because guess what? Every web browser is distributed with older versions available. Here's where we look it up through Google to look up the archive, to look up the Unity archive off their website, or just look up uploaded copies by citizens. So, I'm advising you against using cracked or hacked or pirated software that was uploaded by anybody but the author. That way you aren't exposed to malware, viruses, or security risks. That's why we have the download links that used to go to and now can go other places for products from Microsoft Corporation or Apple or whatever. Now the next thing is, in order to check all these, you have to use a checksum method, mdsum, whatever, to authenticate whether or not the file has been altered or not. That's the only difference. But again, if you use the torrent and it's a copy from the original source, like Microsoft Corporation, Unity, even Unreal Engine was distributed this way, you're not going to get any problems. Are you breaking any rules? No. When they do this, they're warned when you make one of these that it makes it functionally impossible to delete your old code. If they're trying to compete with their old programs, by the way, that run much better on modern hardware than you might believe, they are not going to be able to get rid of it. It will never go away. That was the point. Are you really using a cracked or pirated version if they gave it away that way? The answer is no. Are you ever, if you're watching my channel, ever going to download something that wasn't done from the source? No, for 2 reasons. 1, it's dangerous. Number 2, if a company isn't smart enough to do the exact same thing I'm describing, they don't deserve to be downloaded. You should ignore them. And their click wrap licenses should reflect this. We will never ever devalue or disable older copies as far as you being able to get them. No, you're not going to be able to run them anymore, but guess what? The cracks for doing it were also released on them as end-of-life versions. So you can continually run it in demo mode with some reduced functionality, still get some stuff done, learn, and then you'll maybe want to download the latest version or whatever version they currently support and be able to give them money. And again, if you're not being a douchebag, you should do the following. Hey, Unity, would you make your older versions able to be authenticated so I can play with them? Because now that you have versions of PACE, anti-piracy, and other DRM that doesn't crash my computer, I'd like to use them. Or I can just do everything in Unreal Engine version 2, which has no restrictions and doesn't have any of these problems.